what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to simply go through each analysis that was conducted by your lab, and if you could inform us of the findings that are documented in this report. May we dim the lights, Your Honor?
Please, Mrs. Benson.
These first three items listed as under femoral blood, bases, benzodiazepine, and propofol. Do those three items represent the tests that were done utilizing the femoral blood?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just going to zoom in then so we can see these three. Okay. Now, beginning with the first service, bases, what does that mean?
BASES is a pharmaceutical basic drug screen. Again, it is looking for drugs similar to antidepressants, antipsychotics, antihistamines, and in this particular case, we detected lidocaine in the femoral blood.
Okay.
Let me just preface this whole thing before we even begin to start with the 8-page report, in that most of the analysis...
The objection sustained. The entire answer is stricken. Disregarded, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Your question.
Could you explain the analysis as represented in this 8-page report?
It's typical of the laboratory to do most of their analysis in the central or heart blood. If warranted, we will move on to other specimens to confirm other types of drugs in other specimens. So all of our work, the vast majority of our work is in that heart blood, and then extra work is also done in other types of specimens such as femoral blood, vitreous, liver, gastric. So we're beginning here at the top page of femoral blood, and we only have 3 results, and that's because they happen to be positive elsewhere in the heart blood.
Okay. So the heart blood's kind of the starting point?
It is.
All right. And because this is listed first on the report, let's begin with the femoral blood. Then you indicated service was conducted for bases, and there was a positive result for lidocaine?
Yes.
Again, this is strictly dealing with the femoral blood?
Correct.
All right.
Excuse me. So that we're all clear, could counsel inquire as to femoral blood?
Sure. What is femoral blood?
Talking about the various different blood samples, when I first talked about most of our work is done in the central blood or heart blood. That is blood taken from the central cavity. It's generally a lot more plentiful in the central cavity from the heart. Interpretively, it's a little bit different. Femoral vein blood is taken generally from the femoral or the leg vein, and typically it's less of a volume that you can take from it. Typically you take no more than 10 mils, or a typical blood vial that you go to the hospitals with, get your blood drawn. It's 1 vial is 10 milliliters in volume, so you typically get no more than that amount of blood in that one tube. So quantity-wise, it's very limited in what you're able to work with.
And going through them before we go through the entire report, the heart blood is self-explanatory. That's blood from the heart?
Correct.
Okay. Also in your document, it indicates hospital blood. Is that from the 4 vials that were retrieved from UCLA?
Yes.
Okay. You've just described femoral blood. Another category or specimen is vitreous. What is that?
A vitreous sample is also called vitreous humor. It's actually clear fluid from behind the eyeballs, and it's actually a very clear, clean specimen. It's actually very pristine and actually holds the drug and their concentrations very well.
Okay, and the liver, that was a specimen?
A liver, yes.
Could you describe that as far as the sample and the specimen?
Yeah, I mean, a liver, during autopsy, the pathologist will collect a portion of the liver, and they give me a chunk of the liver to work with.
And the gastric contents, what is that?
The gastric contents are the stomach contents taken from the decedent. Generally, and it's standard operating procedure for the pathologist to submit in the entire gastric contents to the laboratory.
And then there are 2 urine samples or 2 urine specimens in your report, one being urine and one being urine from the scene. Can you describe those 2 samples?
Yes. There were 2 urines in this particular case, one being collected by investigator Fleek. It was brought in a plastic urine bottle, something you would see similar at the hospital where they're collecting urine in it, as well as the urine that was collected from the bladder during autopsy by the pathologist.
Okay, thank you. Now going then to the femoral blood, you indicated it was a positive result for lidocaine. Can you describe the result and who the analyst was?
Sure. We detected lidocaine at 0.84 micrograms per milliliter, and it was performed by a EUCEN, E-U-C-E-N, FU, F-U.
And the next service as it relates to the femoral blood, is that for benzodiazepines?
Yes.
Okay, and can you describe the findings as it relates to the femoral blood benzodiazepines?
Yes, we detected Lorazepam at 169 nanograms per milliliter, or if you convert it, 0.169 micrograms per milliliter. And it was performed by Acera, S-A-R-A-H, Dequintana, D-E-Q-U-I-N-T-A-N-A.
All right, and the third service as it relates to the femoral blood?
We detected propofol as a drug, and we detected at a level of 2.6 micrograms per milliliter, and it was performed by Jamie Lintemoot, J-A-I-M-E, Lintemoot, L-I-N-T-E-M-O-O-T.
Going down then to the next specimen, that is the heart blood?
Correct.
All right. And just to zoom out for a moment, the rest of the specimens you're going to be discussing on this first page of your report, going down the list from top to bottom under heart blood, these are all heart blood results?
Correct.
All right. I'm going to zoom in. All right, and if you could then just, with these heart blood specimens, can you just go from the top and describe the tests and the findings for each of these specimens?
Sure. Starting with the top, acetaminophen was tested for, or Tylenol, is commonly known, and it was not detected.
That's represented by an ND in the units column?
Yes.
Okay. And that was by Ms. Lintemoot?
That was by Jamie Lintemoot. The next line is an alcohol or a volatile test where we look for ethanol or drinking alcohol specifically, and the result was negative by a gentleman named Mark, M-A-R-K, Schuchart, S-C-H-U-C-H-A-R-D-T.
All right. The next test?
Barbiturates as a class of drugs were analyzed.
Let me stop you. What are barbiturates as a class of drugs?
Barbiturates are it's an older generation type drug, and they are sedative hypnotics, really. Sedative properties.
All right. And so with this service for barbiturate, can you describe the findings?
Not detected, and that was actually the test was done by myself.
All right. And the next one indicated, excuse me, is bases. Can you describe this line?
Similar to what the femoral blood was, we detected lidocaine in the basic drug panel at a level of 0.68 micrograms per milliliter, and again, it was done by Mr. Fu.
All right. Beneath that is another bases service.
Sure. The next 5 lines actually belong to the basis service, remembering that we look for many, many different types of drugs in that basic drug screen. And in this particular case, we call very specifically what drugs were not detected probably because we had some type of history in this case file or some type of suggestion from the media that there's possible some drugs should be on board. Specifically, we looked for Meperidine, which is Demerol. We looked for Normeperidine, which is Demerol metabolite. The next two lines
All right, let me stop you there. So what is commonly referred to as Demerol is represented on your test results as Meperidine?
Correct.
Okay. And you said Normeperidine is a metabolite of Meperidine. Can you explain that, please?
When someone ingests a drug, your body naturally wants to try to get rid of it. Your liver will metabolize the drug into another drug. In this particular case, it's Meperidine. Your body converts it to Normeperidine in order to eliminate it or excrete it out of your body. Typically, we look for not only the parent drug, you look for the metabolite as well to demonstrate, is there anything in the body at all?
Okay. So Normeperidine is created via a process internally in the body.
Correct.
All right. And Meperidine, though, actually represents the drug Demerol.
Yes.
All right. So in your testing of the heart blood for Meperidine, otherwise known as Demerol, was any detected?
No.
Okay. And that's represented by the ND, none detected?
That's correct.
All right. And that was by criminalist foo as well?
Yes.
Okay, and then the metabolite of Demerol, Normeperidine, what was that result?
Not detected as well.
All right. And let's just go through then with the three remaining bases that were tested. Can you describe those three and the results, please?
The next two actually belong together as well. The sertraline, also known as Zoloft as a trade name, it's an antidepressant, as well as its metabolite, norsertraline. And they were both not detected, again, by criminalist foo.
All right.
And then the last one being trazodone, also trade name I believe is Deseril, and that is also an antidepressant, and it was also not detected.
All right. And then the next service, or the next four rather, are four different benzodiazepines. Can you just take us through each of those four services represented on page 1 of your report?
Yes. Benzodiazepines as a class of drugs is quite large of a class of drugs. It's similar to barbiturates. It's actually a newer class of drugs, more recently developed, at least earlier than barbiturates. And it tends to replace what the barbiturates were commonly prescribed for in the hospital. But in this case, we looked for several different benzodiazepines. Alprazolam, which is also known as Xanax, and it was not detected by an analyst named of Robert Budd, B-U-D-D. The next drug is diazepam, also commonly known as Valium, and it was detected and reported as present in less than 0.10 micrograms per mil. And that was done by the analyst De Quintana. Another benzodiazepine detected was Lorazepam, also commonly known as Ativan. And that was detected at 162 nanograms per milliliter. And remembering that the femoral blood was also quantitated for Lorazepam as well, earlier discussed. And that was done by De Quintana as well.
And the last benzodiazepine service on this page?
It's called Midazolam, also known as Versed as a trade name, commonly administered in hospitals. And it's reported out as 4.6 nanograms per milliliter by this, Robert Budd as well.
Going then to page 2, which continues with the heart blood results. Can you see that, Mr. Anderson?
I can.
Beginning then on page 2 with the first service being another benzodiazepine service, can you explain these results, please?
The nordiazepam actually is a metabolite of diazepam or Valium. And we also detected it at present in less than 0.05 micrograms per milliliter.
And the analyst?
Oh, Dequintana as well.
All right. And that's a metabolite, just as you described. Normeperidine's a metabolite of meperidine?
Yes.
All right. It's something that happens internally in the body?
Yes, it's not prescribed by itself.
Okay. And the next benzodiazepine, please?
Yes, it's called Zaloplon. It's actually a trade name of Sonata. And it's actually really not a benzodiazepine. It's just listed as such, just so that, it happened to be underneath that service where the analyst took care of it. We didn't detect it, and it was by Kremlis Bud.
Okay, and none detected.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the next line, please describe what this service is where it indicates carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide was tested for and reported as less than 10% saturation, which interpretively means it's not present. It's less than what's commonly detected in normal people. Smokers can have up to 10% carbon monoxide in their system.
All right, and you did that analysis?
Yes, I actually did the analysis.
And the next one, again, we're on heart blood for cocaine.
Cocaine, along with all its metabolites, was tested for, not detected by me.
All right.
Cyanide was tested and not detected, and that was by Kremlis Schuchart. Fentanyl was tested. Fentanyl is a potent opiate, a painkiller, and it was tested for and not detected by myself.
Next one.
Tizanidine, it also has a trade name of Xanaflex. It's a muscle relaxant, and it was tested for and not detected by Kremlis de Quintana.
Okay.
The
the next one, halogenated hydro. Is that word cut off or heart?
It's halogenated hydrocarbons.
All right.
Okay, and actually those next two go together. One of them is called F-chlorovinyl, and the other one's called trichloroethanol. And they're common, well, not so common anymore these days, hypnotics, sedative hypnotics. One of them's chlorohydrate, and they were both not detected by Kremlis Bud.
Okay, going to the next 4 services, what is LC/MS?
It's an instrument that we use to detect the drugs that we're going to talk about.
All right, and it's unique to these drugs?
It's one way of detecting these particular drugs. There's other means of detecting them, but we certainly confirmed by this instrument that they were not there.
All right, and which 4 drugs are those as it relates to the LC/MS service?
Clonazepam, along with its metabolite 7-amino-clonazepam, as well as oxazepam and temazepam. Those are all benzodiazepines. They were all not detected, and they were all not detected by Kremlis Lintamut.
All right, the next line indicating marijuana. Can you describe the results as it relates to marijuana in the heart blood?
Marijuana was tested for specifically its metabolite, the carboxy tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC for short, and it was not detected by myself.
All right. Going then to the methamphetamine, and there are 3 separate methamphetamine services. Can you describe each of those and the results, please?
In the methamphetamine service, we look for very common drugs that we see in society: methamphetamine, amphetamine, ecstasy, ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, over-the-counter type preparations, cold preps. In this particular case, we looked specifically for methamphetamine and its metabolite, amphetamine, but in this particular case, amphetamine is also prescribed out there in society. It's also called Adderall for ADHD type symptoms. But anyways, the only We looked for and did not find ephedrine, amphetamine, and methamphetamine. And that was performed by an Oscar Pleitez, Pleitez.
All right, and the service for neutrals, and it indicates the drug being propofol. Can you describe the meaning of that, neutrals?
Well, neutrals. I talked earlier about basic drugs, okay? Back to the old chemistry days, drugs are either basic, acidic, or neutral in nature. And that's how we extract out of biological specimens. This class of drugs, neutrals, are more the anti-seizure medications, other types of drugs we can see in this particular extraction. And it's how we extract out the drugs. In this particular case, I performed the neutral analysis, and I detected propofol. And it was reported out as present because I knew it was going to be quantitated or given a number, a signed number, in a different analysis.
And in fact, it was analyzed as part of the heart blood. Is that right?
Along with many other specimens,
Right.
yes.
Okay, so going then to the page 3 of your report, still continuing with the heart blood. The first service being, well, actually, you could just, if you want to talk about the first 4 opiate services and describe each one individually and the results, please.
Sure. Opiates we looked at as a class of drugs. It actually was a single test that I was able to eliminate 4 different types of drugs from it. Codeine, morphine, hydrocodone, which is also Vicodin, hydromorphone, and they were all not detected by myself.
Okay, you said hydrocodone is Vicodin?
Vicodin. That's one of the many trade names.
All right. And all 4 of these individual opiate services what resulted in none detected.
That's correct.
All right. The next line indicates outside test. Can you describe what that is?
It's a test that we can't perform within our own laboratory. So it's actually referred out to an outside lab. We refer it out. So we actually aliquot out a portion of the blood and send it to another lab to perform this particular drug called hemoglobin A1C. And it's a measurement of diabetic issues.
All right. And the results on that?
5.1%, and it was performed by Quest Diagnostics.
And does that finding have any particular meaning to you as a toxicologist?
It doesn't to me. It may to somebody else, but
Okay.
I don't know what it means.
Going next then to oxycodone. Can you describe that test, what it is, and the results, please?
Oxycodone is also known as OxyContin or Percocet, Percodan, as the trade names. And it's an opiate. It's a very potent opiate, and it was not detected as well by Criminalist de Quintana.
Phencyclidine, the next line. Can you
Yeah.
describe that and the results, please?
Phencyclidine is also known as PCP on the streets, and it was not detected by myself.
And this next line then, the propofol, this is still the heart blood, so this is the test that gave you a numerical result as it relates to the heart blood?
Yes.
All right, can you describe this service and the results, please?
The test was performed by Jamie Lindemuth, and quantitatively it was 3.2 micrograms per milliliter.
All right.
And
the last, I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry.
The last service under heart blood, can you describe that one and the result, please?
Salicylates, also known as aspirin, was tested for and not detected by Criminalist Lindemuth.
All right. Now, does that complete the heart blood testing that was done by your lab?
Yes.
And moving this over then, the proceeding forward then, the next services we're going to be discussing all relate to the hospital blood, in other words, from the vials that were collected at UCLA and hand-delivered to you by Alyssa Fleek?
That's correct.
All right. Then going with the first line, please describe the analysis and the results, please?
It's very similar to the heart blood that I just got done describing. It's testing for acetaminophen or Tylenol. That was not detected. And then the next line would be the barbiturates being not detected.
All right. And then first bases test?
There's a whole slew of drugs named under bases. And the first one being diazepam or Valium that we detected in the bases, and it was recorded out as present, not assigned a numerical value here because another analyst would be quantitating it elsewhere.
All right. And the next bases service?
Lidocaine was quantitated and given a value of 0.51 micrograms per milliliter by a Yusin Fu.
All right. And then the next individual basis test for Meperidine, which you previously identified as Demerol, the results of that?
Basically, the Meperidine and its metabolite, normeperidine, was not detected in the hospital blood by a Yusin Fu. And then the next two lines being Zoloft or sertraline and its metabolite, norsertraline, was also tested for and not detected by the same analyst.
Going then to the fourth page of your report, does that continue with the specimen results for the hospital blood?
It continues on page 4.
For hospital blood?
Yes, sir.
And again, Mr. Anderson, going with, well, let's just, you could probably take us through this rather quickly. But for the propofol at the bottom, showing a 4.1 micrograms per milliliter, is every single test that is shown on this page for the hospital blood resulting in none detected?
Yes, it's very similar to the heart blood analysis.
And just to make sure, have you previously described each of these drugs from the prior heart blood and femoral blood descriptions?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So then, with all the none detected, can you just list off, starting from the drug trazodone, list off each of the drugs that was where there was no detection as it relates to what's shown here in this report?
Sure. In the basis service, we looked for trazodone. We not detected. Cocaine and its metabolites, fentanyl, the 7-aminoclonazepam along with clonazepam, oxazepam, temazepam, dicarboxy-THC, methamphetamine, codeine, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, morphine, phencyclidine or PCP, and then the salicylates also being not detected. The only thing detected in the hospital blood on this particular page was the propofol at a level of 4.1 micrograms per milliliter, and the analyst being Crimelis lintamut.
Moving then to the liver specimen, as shown on the same page to the left, and just with the one service showing on this page, a basis service. Can you describe that, please, and the findings?
Sure. We actually only performed 2 tests on the liver, this being one of them on page 4 of 8. The lidocaine was detected at 0.45 micrograms per gram. And the units change because we're reporting out on a solid specimen. So rather than mils for volume, it's grams by weight because of the liver.
And was the liver tested for propofol?
Yes, it was.
Going to page 5 of your report, the uppermost specimen continuing the liver results. Can you describe the findings as it relates to propofol in the liver?
Yes, we detected 6.2 micrograms per gram, and it was conducted by the same analyst who did the propofol for the heart blood and femoral blood, Jamie Lintemuth.
And again, as you described with the lidocaine, this is in a measurement of grams because it's by weight.
Because the liver is a solid specimen, yes.
And going to the next line, you list medical evidence. It says medical evidence done. So those are results that we'll deal with later. But there was medical evidence tested in this case?
Yes, there was.
All right. Now, the next specimen is, do you see here indicated by stomach contents? That's the gastric contents you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
All right. And as far as the stomach contents, is it 2 tests that were done?
2 tests similar to the liver and the femoral.
Okay, could you describe the results as far as the stomach contents, please?
Sure. We detected lidocaine in our basic drug screen and quantitated at 1.6 milligrams total drug, and that was performed by Criminalist Fu, as well as propofol, again, and we found 0.13 milligrams, and that was performed by the same analyst, Lintemuth.
And again, can you explain that unit measurement as it differentiated from the other ones that were per mil?
Sure. Rather than report out a concentration, we do determine a concentration when we perform our analysis, but because we know the total volume or weight of the stomach when it's given to us, we actually do a multiplication and determine how much drug is still remaining in the stomach that has not been absorbed into the system yet. So that's what these numbers represent. It represents, lidocaine at 1.6 milligrams of drug that has not been absorbed into your system quite yet.
Thank you. Then proceeding with again, we're on page 5 of your report, the urine results. And the urine, again, as identified here, the urine results, since there are 2, which urine result do these identify?
On page 5 of 8, this urine result reflects an autopsy urine, whereas the urine results on page 7 of 8 has a urine asterisk, and actually the asterisk represents urine that was collected from the plastic bottle while at scene.
Okay. So let's begin then with the urine.